Hooters. The place you went for wings and left questioning capitalism, human resources, and your relationship with your father. The franchise that built an empire on the belief that men would pay a 40% premium on chicken just to make awkward eye contact with a college girl named Tiffany. And for 2 decades, it worked, which says less about Hooters and more about what America was working with before Wi-Fi. But this isn't a story about a restaurant that got canceled. Hooters survived cancel culture and lawsuits just fine. They even survived launching an airline, but we'll get to that. What Hooters couldn't survive was a Silicon Valley algorithm, an identity crisis, and a private equity firm walking with $376 million in debt and a calculator. This is the story of how 6 guys in Florida built a cultural brand on an April Fool's joke, watched private equity dismantle it, one bad decision at a time, and somehow ended up adding salads. Quick disclaimer before we get irresponsible. This is CynicaLab. We exaggerate, simplify, and occasionally bully corporations for entertainment purposes. If you're here looking for factual analysis or peer-reviewed research, brother, you're in the wrong place. Hooters was born in 1983 in Clearwater, Florida, which of course it had to be Florida. 6 guys, an unholy amount of Miller Lite, and apparently 0 adult supervision, looked at chicken wings, a swimsuit, and thought, what if we monetized awkwardness? The first location opened on April Fool's Day because even the founders knew this idea sounded like a pending lawsuit. The pitch was simple: wings, beer, questionable vibes, and waitresses in orange shorts serving wings to men who say they were just here for the atmosphere. Sure, brother, and I read Playboys for the articles. On paper, it was a casual restaurant. In practice, it was a business built around objectification and selective professionalism before the internet gave Americans a search bar. You see, in 1983, you couldn't just open an app to see, let's call it content. You had to leave your house, participate in society, and maybe order 12 wings as a cover story. They named their staff Hooters Girls. Their logo was an owl with eyes placed exactly where the legal department probably told them not to place them. And the uniforms looked like they were designed by a beach volleyball coach with unresolved HR complaints. Hooters' most famous product was never on the menu. It was the Hooters Girl, which worked beautifully as a business model, but less beautifully as a legal defense. By the 90s, Hooters had managed to turn a joke into a national brand, dominating America's confused male demographic. Over 400 locations, millions in revenue, calendars, commercials, and even a pageant. Yes, a Miss Hooters pageant. Because nothing screams culinary excellence like ranking women next to buffalo wings. Plenty of restaurants have gimmicks, and most of them die right next to an abandoned mall fountain. But not Hooters. The gimmick was their business model. A sports bar where the game was on, the wings were kind of acceptable when you're 3 beers in, and a waitress laughed at your joke like it wasn't a crime against comedy. The company was printing money. Franchise owners were living the dream, and by dream, I mean the HR nightmare. You could practically smell their success and fryer grease. In the early 2000s, Hooters was feeling itself. The restaurant was everywhere, the brand was famous, the calendars were moving, the pageants were pageanting. And somewhere between questionable vibes and legal liability, someone with an impressive amount of confidence looked at chicken and said, you know what these wings need? Aerodynamics. So in 2003, Hooters Air was born, a real airline with real passengers in real planes regulated by real federal agencies who absolutely did not ask for this. A restaurant famous for wings looked at one of the most expensive, complicated, safety-obsessed industries on Earth and said, hold my beer. The pitch was basically, what if flight attendants wore orange shorts and the safety briefing felt like a bachelor party? Because when you think safety and federal regulation, you obviously think turbulence and thigh exposure at 30,000 feet. Imagine hitting wind shear and hearing, in case of emergency, your nearest exit is located next to Brittany from Tampa. That's not an evacuation plan, that's plausible deniability. Their routes connected places like Atlanta and Myrtle Beach, which is a very specific route when your target demographic is a married man with a conference badge. Honey, I swear it was the only available flight. Sure, David. The airline industry just accidentally invented alibi transportation. But unsurprisingly, running an airline is slightly harder than deep frying chicken. In 2006, the owl had flown too close to the sun. Hooters Air shut down after only 3 years, having burned through $40 million trying to be an airline when they couldn't even get the wings right in the first place. After that failed side quest, the only thing that truly took off was the debt. Now, you might be wondering, Cynical Inc. isn't hiring only women based on their appearance illegal? Yes, it is. That's what the Civil Rights Act Act would call it. In 1997, Hooters had a problem. A group of grown men filed a class action lawsuit claiming gender discrimination, asking the question, why can't I be a Hooters girl? Which, on paper, makes sense. If Hooters was just a wing joint, why can't a hairy dude in a tank top hand me my fried poultry? And that, my friend, is when Hooters pulled off the funniest legal magic trick in corporate history. They couldn't just say, no men allowed, because vibes. Lawyers walked straight to the courtroom and argued that Hooters wasn't actually in the food business at all. They were in the business of vicarious sexual recreation. The entire legal defense was basically, Your Honor, we are not merely handing out chicken. The orange shorts are load-bearing, which is insane. They invoked a legal loophole called the bona fide occupational qualification, which in plain English means the sexism isn't a corporate flaw, it's the infrastructure. Imagine confessing to a federal court that your multi-million empire will mathematically collapse unless the waitress looks like she's one bad decision away from a beach volleyball calendar. Brother, that's not a restaurant, that's a theme park for cleavage. Hooters settled for $3.75 million, agreed to create gender-neutral jobs for men, like bartender and host roles, but the sacred position of the Hooters girl remained exclusively female. The thing about building a brand on attention, it works right up until attention becomes free. Hooters' ridiculous business model was struggling. Surprisingly, they weren't getting wiped out by cancel culture, woke era, or the sudden sweeping wave of progressive moral awakening. Please, America did not become mature. This country still puts Punisher stickers on lifted pickup trucks and wears gas station Oakleys indoors. Hooters got completely nuked by a Silicon Valley algorithm. In the 2010s, the internet showed up. Suddenly, you didn't need to physically participate in your own embarrassment right next to a basket of questionable garlic parmesan chunks. Instagram was handing out the exact same attention economy in 4K with studio-grade lighting and delivered it to your phone with absolutely no obligation for $14 appetizer minimum. Even the Hooters girl could do the math. Why serve wings at minimum wage and $3 tip when you can charge the same guy $10 subscription and you don't have to smell like a fryer at the end of your shift? That should have terrified corporate, because the moment attention moved online, Hooters lost the one thing that made the restaurant feel special. And corporate did what every dying 20th century brand does when reality hits. They blamed millennials. At one point, the internet turned Hooters' decline into this hilarious panic headline about millennials not caring about breasts anymore, based on a 2017 Cornhub analysis that said younger users were less likely to search for breast-related content. That rumor got so big, Hooters had to publicly deny it was shutting down or rebranding because of it. Eugene, selling 1980s fantasy to a world that has Wi-Fi isn't cultural evolution. That's just corporate cope. And once the fantasy stopped carrying the restaurant, people started noticing the food, which is dangerous when the wings were never supposed to do all the heavy lifting. In 2017, Hooters desperately tried to modernize. This is a problem when your entire brand is built on a 1980s locker room joke and legal trauma. They launched a new spin-off called Hoots. No shorts, no flirting, just counter-service wings trying to live an honest life. Hoots was supposed to be family-friendly, gender-inclusive servers wearing respectable t-shirts and khakis. Hooters without the load-bearing shorts is just another wing place serving wet cardboard dipped in hot sauce, competing against Buffalo Wild Wings, Wingstop, and whatever ghost kitchen is operating out of a gas station bathroom. So naturally, Hooters panicked and then ran in the complete opposite direction. In 2021, Hooters updated the uniform, except they replaced the shorts with gravity-defying high-cut spandex underwear. Employees didn't take it to court, they took it straight to TikTok. Dozens of clips went viral comparing the old shorts to the microscopic amount of fabric in the new crotch floss. Hooters immediately issued a press release clarifying their stance on inseams, and the new briefs were optional because enforcing them bordered on violating local public decency laws. When your official PR statement involves the phrase crotch coverage, you're not running a wing chain anymore. You're running a public relations hostage situation. As chaotic as the uniform PR disaster was, Hooters was about to face a predator far more ruthless than angry TikTokers or federal labor boards: private equity. Because apparently Hooters looked at their identity crisis and said, you know what we're missing? Debt. In 2019, Hooters of America was bought by private equity firms, Nordbay Capital and Triartisan Capital Advisors. If you're not familiar, the private equity model is simple. Buy a struggling brand with borrowed money, load the debt onto the already struggling company they just bought, squeeze margins, and then dip before the math catches up. Hooters went from a company with problems to a company with the same problems, but now with $376 million in debt. Let that sink in. $376 million. That is not a rough quarter. That is a mortgage mortgage on the entire thirst economy. By the time the pandemic and inflation hit, the math got depressing. By 2024, Hooters had closed 48 locations. By 2025, 30 more locations closed, some closing overnight without advance notice. Employees showed up for their shifts only to find lockboxes on the doors. In March 2025, Hooters filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and Triartisan, the same private equity firm that loaded Hooters with debt, also owned TGI Fridays. TGI Fridays also went bankrupt around the same time. At some point, that stops being bad luck and starts being a business model. So is Hooters dead? Technically? After bankruptcy, the original founders bought the brand back through bankruptcy court and announced re-Hooterization, which is either the most optimistic sentence in restaurant history or the most Florida thing ever written on a legal document. The plan is to bring Hooters back to its roots. Original 1980s uniforms, fresher wings, house-made sauces, and salads. They are adding salads. The restaurant that spent 40 years insisting it was a world-famous wing destination is now celebrating freshness with daily cut salads and house-made ranch dressing. I don't know whether to call this a genuine redemption arc or the longest April Fool's joke in America's business history. This has been your host, Cynical Unk. I break down why the system isn't broken. It's working exactly as intended. Like and subscribe. We're only this many poor decisions away from 1 million subscribers. Do it now, because unlike Hooters, the structural integrity of this channel doesn't depend on the length of our shorts.